All right. I will check these. I will bring them back to you next week. And like I said last week, the rest of this year, we only live 4 times after today. What? We only have. Oh, well, hopefully we live much longer than 4 times after today. But we only have 4 more class meetings after today, so we don't have a lot of. And I think the next one, the next chapter, might be a little. I don't know. Maybe I'll prepare chapter 3, but we might need to take 2 weeks, so we'll see. We must always study Latin. But let's go over chapter 1. So get out the wherever you wrote down the sentences. Some of them we did together last week.
So we went to a Searfolds and I was studying them on the way out. And that the paper I did most of.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay. Well, we're going to go. Can you look on with him maybe so that you can see? And we did 1, 2, 3, 4. Did we do 5? We looked at it. I remember looking at, maybe we didn't. Well, let's just assume we didn't do 5. What did you translate 5 as, Luke? You're going to have to carry the class because did you do them, Preston? Do you have your paper? Okay. So Luke, you're just center stage. Sepe pecamus. You might want to write them on another piece of paper next week. We sin often, or we often sin. Beautiful. Quid, do you mind doing them, Luke? Do you mind? Do you feel like you're on the spot? Since you're the only one who has your answers? Are you okay? Hey, Luke, it's totally fine to get them wrong. I do my language and I get them wrong all the time. So, okay. Quid debemus cogitare?
What we ought to think.
Mm-hmm. What we ought to think. Can you, Luke, can you make that a question in English? Because what we ought to think, that's not really a question. Turn, all you got to do is scramble the words around a little bit. What ought we to think? You know, there's another way we would say that. Do you ever talk like that when you're talking to people, to your friends or your parents? What ought I to do, mother? No, we never say it that way. What do we actually say? If you're asking your mom what she wants you to do, you don't say, what ought I to do? What do you say? Oh, that's a very nice way of putting it. I was putting it even not that nice. Okay. I'm not fishing. I'm fishing, but I'm not getting the fish I want. Well, or what should I do?
Just
what should? We use the word should. We don't really say ought. I don't even say you ought. You ought to study your Latin every day. I'm probably going to say you should. But I like it if we say ought when we see debio because it makes me know you know how it works. Also, if I use the word ought, the next word is always to. You ought to do something, but should is that you should. So if that number 6, what should we think? I never actually say the word to think, cogitare. But if I were translating it into good English, that's probably what I do. Okay, enough of that. Conservate me. Save me. How many people am I asking to save me? Conservate. I'll write it up here. Conservate. More than one. What would I say if I only wanted one person to save me? How would I change it? Beautiful, Luke. Conservate. May save me. Rumor volat. That's okay. What it tells you what volo means in the parentheses. So volo means fly. So what does volat mean? He sheared flies. And what in that sentence do you think could be the he sheared? And I'm going to tell you that Latin word means the exact same thing in English. Rumor flies. In other words, when people start spreading stories about something, it seems like everybody knows really, really fast. If something's going on, like just gets passed around, rumor flies. By the way, in this book, Luke, when there's a word that's exactly the same in English, they don't usually, like rumor, they don't tell you. If you run across a word that looks exactly like an English word and they don't tell you what it means anywhere, just assume it means the exact same thing in English as in Latin. Okay, number 9. Me non amat.
He does not love me.
Doesn't love me. Nihil me teret. Oh, and by the way, Luke, you don't have, when you translate, you don't have to say he, she, or it does not love me. You can just pick one. And just, I understand that it's one of those 3. And if you wanted to say it does not love me, some monster, I don't know, some rock. The rock probably doesn't love you, by the way. Just you can do that. You don't have to say all 3. Okay, number 10. Nihil me teret. You having trouble reading your writing? Okay. Well, what does terio mean? Do you remember? Scare. So what does teret mean?
He scares.
He scares. And what does may mean?
Me.
Okay. So put those 2 together.
Me scares?
Well, but do I ever say me scares?
No.
And me can't be the subject, can it? Because you said he, she, or it was the subject.
It scares me.
It scares me. And then, do you remember what nihil means? It's on our list. If you want to flip back, it's the 3rd word. Now put those together. So we know.
She scares me with nothing.
No, it can't move. How about? What if nothing is the it? Nothing scares me. Because nothing is kind of an it. It's kind of not an it because nothing is nothing, but you know what I mean. Nothing scares me. How about Apollo me saipe servat?
Is Apollo's servant?
Okay, but if he's Apollo's servant, look here, that would be with an apostrophe S, and that's genitive, isn't it? And we haven't even learned that here. And Apollo, well, that's what we say his name is. I'm thinking that's nominative. Apollo must be the subject. So what does servat mean? Well, read again. I'm sorry, Luke. Tell me again what you've translated it as. Read your translation again.
It looks like I translated servat the same in Latin as I did to English.
Okay, and I warned you about that. Servo doesn't mean serve; it means guard. So if servat means guard, what could that sentence mean?
Apollo guards me.
Mm-hmm. And he guards me saipe. It's okay.
Often Apollo guards me.
Yes, Apollo often guards me. Salvete, quid videtus? Nihil videmus.
Hello, what do you say?
Yes. It's a very boring conversation between those two people, isn't it? What do you see? See nothing. Open your eyes. Saepe nihil cogitas.
Often you think nothing.
Yeah, that seems really insulting to me. That's better than always you think nothing. They could have done that, but okay. This one's kind of tricky because they gave you words you don't know and they put them bis das, siquito das.
I didn't know what das meant.
Das. Yes, it's very tricky. But now you're going to sigh and go, oh, of course. Do, das, dot. Yeah, there's a sigh. Damus, datus, dant. It's give. You give. Bis.
You give twice.
Yes. Siquito das.
If
Do you want to look at my book? Is it kind of boring for you not to see it? Have a visual aid?
No.
Okay.
if you give twice.
Well, if you give keto, and they tell you what keto means too.
You give quickly.
Mm-hmm. You give twice if you give quickly. And they ask, what do you suppose this ancient proverb meant? You give twice if you give quickly. If I ask you for a Snickers bar, I'm a little hungry today. I really am. We had a discussion about Snickers in early class. If you give it to me right away, that's like an extra present. If you say, I will give you a Snickers in 2 hours, like, great, thank you. But if you give it to me immediately when I ask, it doesn't mean you give me 2 Snickers, but it means getting it right away is like a second gift. If someone asks you to do something or asks you for something and you do it immediately, like, oh, yay, I got the thing and I got it right away. It's like a second gift. Does that make sense? You give twice if you give quickly. Si wales walio.
If you be strong, I be strong.
Yes. Or if you are well, I am well. Because walio can mean a whole herd of things. And it notes that Romans often begin their letters this way. If you are well, I am well. Kind of a nicety. We assume they meant it, that they weren't just being nice, but like we call people dear when we write to them, whether they're dear to us or not, you know. Yeah, do you ever write letters? Dear Grandma. You know, that's the salutation. That's the standard salutation of a letter. You know what? Don't feel bad, John. I am increasingly finding students who I have a girl on Thursday that she said she had never written a letter before to anyone in her life.
Or they usually just start out with the name and how.
Oh no! Generally, we say "Dear so and so," and then because people text or they email.
I also never put love at the bottom. I always put sincere.
That's okay. Even to grandmas or whatever.
I just
That's
say
okay. You know what?
sincere.
Your grandma is happy or sincere. Okay, let's do the ones that we put into Latin. What does he see? What is the word for what? Quid. And does he see is one word. Quid videt. Boom. 4 words. I'm just saying. 4 words in English, 2 words in Latin. Which language wins? Latin wins. Yes. Okay. They are giving nothing.
That started off
They probably
so
because they
nice.
think nothing. They often think nothing. No. Maybe they don't have anything. Let's cut him some slack. Times are hard. They are giving nothing. Lay it on us, Luke. Yes. Or I might say nihil dant. Often the verb is at the end. Okay. You ought not to praise me.
Oh, well,
David. Zebes.
Debes.
Lada. Nay.
Okay. So is this basically what you put?
Yeah.
Okay. I love all these words except one. And I'm going to tell you, you ought not to praise. What's wrong with this? To praise me.
That's a command.
Is it? You ought not to praise.
Yeah, I wrote it down.
Oh, yes, that is a command. You're right. But how do I say to praise? But not to praise me. Beautiful. If I err, he often warns me. Sounds like he's a nag, frankly. How about just the if I err?
C arrow.
Okay, if I err, he often warns me.
Saipe.
Okay. Me. That's an easy one. Beautiful. You're doing a great job, Luke. If you love me, let's do that part.
C amos.
Me.
May.
Okay.
Wam.
Oh, yes. Sir Wam May. And then how do I say please? Do you remember? Amabote. It was in our vocabulary. Remember, I will love you. Si era. Oh no. Si amas me, serwa me amabote. If you love me, save me, please. All right. Let's read. We read a whole little paragraph. I'm so proud of us. The poet Horace contemplates an invitation. All right. Mycenas et Regilius me hodie vocant. And I told you Maecenas and Virgil are the guys' names.
Maecenas and Virgil call me today.
Maecenas and Virgil call me. Quid cogitari debio?
What ought I to think?
Yes. Quid debio respondere?
What must I respond?
Yes. Am I going to answer? Yes, I'm coming. I don't know. It seemed like this is a angstish, existential, deep question. It's like yes or no. Okay. Si ero me saipe monet et culpant.
If I err, they often blame me, and if I just did that off of memory.
Good job.
They often warn me
Mm-hmm.
and blame me if I do not err. They praise me.
Okay, stop there. These guys are jerks. Well, maybe not. If I err, they often warn me and blame me. If I make a mistake, well, he doesn't need these people as friends. And if I do not err, they praise me. Like, what's friends that only think well of you when you don't make a mistake? What? Oh, that burn. That's our job, to warn and blame and praise. Okay. Quid hodie cogitari debio? What should I think today? All right. Do I really want to hang out with these guys? Well done. Chapter 1 of Wheelock's Latin. Beautiful. Let's take a look at chapter 2. Because there's always another chapter. There isn't always another chapter. Eventually it's over. There are 40 chapters in this book. So I have one for each of you. And I might have to look over John's shoulder, but no, not yet. Chapter 2 introduces us to nouns. We have already been introduced to many of these nouns, but we have definitely been introduced to the endings that we use. Let's do a little review of how noun endings work. This is going to be pretty much, you know everything I'm about to say. You just do. Noun endings are divided into singular and plural, right? and into 5 cases: nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative. They also, I didn't make the chart for you. Give you something called the vocative. We learned this in here. For, for first declension, it's the same as the nominative, so we won't worry about it. The vocative was the one where I'm talking to you. Luke, hand me your paper. And I'm saying the word Luke. I'm saying it to you. That's got its own case. But let's just worry about these right now. And you know these endings. I, arum, is, as, is. Just to review, what do the nominative endings do for you? What is the job in the sentence? Genitive, what's its job? Dative. Accusative. Ablative. Yeah, and a bunch of other crazy stuff that we learn eventually. Okay. I don't sell the ablative case very well, do I? A bunch of other crazy stuff.
Do you think it's favorite? Yeah, use the case or legit.
Yeah. No, I'm not good at that. We have also learned something else that comes into play in this particular word list. You already know, so you're ahead of the people doing this chapter if they don't know any Latin. The fact that all of these nouns happen to be what gender? Almost all of them, right? Unless it's a boy job, sailor, poet, farmer. But there are 2 other genders, masculine and neuter. And you also happen to know that, that the other sets of endings. And so when we see adjectives listed, one of the adjectives in this list is magnus, magna, magnum, or sometimes they list it like this. Why does an adjective need more than one set of endings? It's not good enough for it? Why would it need more? For different genders. Because in Latin, an adjective always agrees with its noun. In case, in number, and in gender. Okay. Yes. That's all that's in this chapter. I'm going to go over the vocabulary, and then I brought the workbook that goes with Wheelock's, and I'm just going to write some chapter 1 sentences on the board, like the chapter that we just did. Maybe I'll even throw a couple of chapter 2 sentences on here. Just to finish out our time. So let's look at the vocabulary in this. I don't know, why did I think this is why I brought the book, so I don't have to look at people's. The book's sitting right in front of me, and I think I'm going to have to look over. Crazy. All right. The first word is fama. Fama. One of the things it means is fame, but it also can mean rumor, report, your reputation. You might ask, well, how do I know which one to learn or how to use in a sentence? Well, which one sounds best? Do you have to learn all of them every time it has multiple? No. Do you notice how rumor, comma, report, and then there's a semicolon? Then fame, comma, reputation. The idea is that rumor and report sort of mean the same thing, and fame and reputation sort of mean the same thing. Just learn one of each group. You don't have to learn them all. Forma means form. So far, I love this vocabulary list. Fama means fame and forma means form. But it also means shape or beauty. You know, the form of the rose was lovely, and it kind of means the shape, it's the beauty. Fortuna means fortune. Oh, wait, just better and better. Oh, except the next one. Oh, by the way, can we just take a closer look at fortuna? In this list, it tells you F, feminine, that it's feminine. And then it tells you what it means, fortune or luck. And then there are parentheses. just like in chapter 1. And it's English words that come from this word. Misfortune, fortunate, unfortunate. They all come from fortuna. That's what the words in the parentheses mean. Okay. Era. Era is very much like the first word, ire, but you might not know what ire means. It means anger. Anger. So in the parentheses, if you are irate, you're very angry. If you are irascible, it means you are prone to being angry. You're an angry sort of person.
So we're
Irrational? No, because it comes ratio, rationis, and the ear is like a form of in, not. If you are irrational, you're not rational.
Okay.
That's a very good question, though. All right, next up, nauta. We already are not surprised to see an M, masculine, after nauta. And we get words like nautical, nautilus, and argonaut. Do you know who the argonauts are? Do you remember who their leader is? Jason. Jason and the Argonauts. Jason went sailing to find the golden fleece on a ship called the Argo. Therefore, they're the Argonauts, right? The sailors on the Argo. And it ended very poorly. He married a nasty witch lady who ended up murdering his children and his king. And she was very nasty, very nasty. And then she flew away in a dragon-drawn chariot through the sky. It's very exciting. And then Jason got old and depressed. And he was sitting down next to a piece of wood, and it fell on him and killed him, and it was a piece of the Argo. It's an awful story. Argonauts. We don't talk about Argonauts, but we do talk about astronauts. Where do they sail? Astronauts.
Into space.
Yes, into Astra, into the stars. An astronaut is a star sailor. I think we should just start calling them star sailors. That would be fun.
Way more cooler than astronaut.
It sounds, I'm a star sailor. Does it sound like you're Guardians of the Galaxy or
Make
something?
the rocket ships look more like boats.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I think we should write to our congressman, Preston. Okay. Next up, patria. Patria means fatherland, native land, one's own country. That's why you're patriotic if you love your country. Pecunia means money. So pecuniary means having to do with money. Philosophia, philosophiae means philosophy. Big surprise. Poena means penalty or punishment. And then look after it. It says poenas dare, to pay the penalty. Whenever we see the word poena, poenas, direct object, with do. So poenas dot. We don't say he gives the penalty, he pays the penalty. That those things just go together, and that's what it means. It's called an idiom, and English has those words that don't literally mean what they actually stand for. What's up? If I tell you what's up, or I ask you what's up, I mean what's going on, what's happening here. I don't literally mean what's up. You should not look up into the sky if I say what's up. I don't know, clouds, birds. No, that's not what I'm asking. And so just like this, it doesn't mean I give the penalties. It means he pays the penalty. Okay. Let's try to remember that. I'm sure it will pop up in the sentence. Poeta means poet. Porta means gate, like portal, a doorway. Puella means girl. You already know this. Rosa means rose. Sententia means feeling, thought, opinion, vote, or sentence. Do not learn all of those. How about opinion or feeling? It's probably good enough. It obviously means sentence. I have to really learn that. Vita means life. If something is vital and it gets cut off, you will not live anymore. Then we have a couple of adjectives. Antiquus. Well, it looks like the word antique, doesn't it? It means ancient or old. That's where antique comes from. Magnus, you've already learned. It means big or large. We can always remember this because remember what happens if I put something under a magnifying glass? It gets big.
I thought sorry.
Oh, yeah. What were you going to say?
I thought of multiply whenever it's in there.
Oh, yes. Because if you multiply, you get more. That comes from multus. The next one, 2 buttons down, much or many. If you multiply, you get many. Meus means my, and tuus means your. One you. Et means and. Sometimes it can mean even. And if you see 2 ets in the same sentence with a noun in between, it means both and. I like both Snickers and Reese's. Both and. And in English, in Latin, they would say, I like et Snickers, et Reese's. Right? Both and. Sed means but. Hold on for the next one. O means O. Sine, I think we learned this one, but I don't know how well we learned it, is a preposition plus the ablative. It means without. It always uses the ablative, whatever you're without. And est, you actually already learned sum est. You know the whole thing. They're just telling est means is. He, she, or it is. This week, you guys go through the sentences. And then there's this kind of annoying Catullus bids his girlfriend farewell. Catullus is known for writing love poetry, and frankly, his love life isn't very good. Girls are always ditching him. The girl he wants is never. It's bad news. Catullus and girls. But anyway, it's pretty short. Remember, if there's a word that you don't know, it may be down in the paragraph below. See, I really don't. I'm going to be ready to go over all these next week, okay? And honestly, half the words are the same in English as they are in Latin, so it's not really tough. And then some of the other ones you already learned. So we'll be ready. I'll bring you chapter 3. I don't think it should be a crazy amount of work to do these. But let's spend another like 5 or 10 minutes, and let's just practice some words on the board. How about that? Why don't you actually, to make it more interesting, why don't you have your new vocabulary list in front of you, and I'll give you some words from the new chapter, and then because the words from the old chapter or the sentences from the old chapter are pretty short and boring because they didn't use very many words. So let's do some more fun ones. Okay. How about poeta non cogitat? I think these are really going to be easy for you. And you can look at the other list too if you want. The poet does not do something, yes. What does the poet not do? Yes, the poet does not think this. You would think so. You know what? Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Okay.
Or really good for that matter.
Oh.
Maybe he doesn't even think about it. He's just so good.
Oh, this one's tricky. I like this one. Date notae pecuniam. This one is tricky. I should have erased my endings.
Wait, that is give, right?
It is give.
Give, and then that's sailor. Yeah, I don't know that last word.
It's on your new list.
Oh, is it money? Right?
Yes, money.
So the poet gives money. Oh, sorry, this sailor. What's sailor?
Okay, but if this is the subject, then it's plural, and our verb would have to be dant. The sailors give, but it says date. What is that? It's a command. I'm telling someone to give.
Sailors give money.
But that's what he just said. If there's no subject, if give is the verb, the subject is you do it, you give it. Give. See, if I say the sailors give, it's not a command anymore.
I said sailors.
Give money. If it's two, then how many sailors? Maybe. Give money to the sailor. Does that make sense? You see it? And do you follow my reasoning? That if it has a subject in the sentence, it's not a command anymore. Every time I start a sentence with a subject, it's not a command. I am reading the book. Who's doing it? I. Read the book. That's a command. And the command always has the idea of you do it. But I don't say you. But the subject is always, you call it in English grammar, understood subject of a command. You is always the understood subject. Does that make sense? And who gets the money? The indirect object, the sailor. Give money to the sailor. Or we could say give the sailor money. Beautiful. How about, oh, you're going to have to look at your list maybe. Sine ira monet. What is the monet?
He warns without anger.
He warns without anger. That's what you want from parents, right? Maybe the warning and blaming, but no anger involved. Remember, without takes the ablative. So the thing we're without is anger, or thing without is ablative. The thing we're without is also anger. Okay, good. Do this one. Nautai poinas dant.
Sailors pay the penalty.
The sailors pay the penalty. Good. Whenever poinas is with dough, pay the penalty. Beautiful. It did not trick you. Forma portarum est antiqua.
The form of the gates is old.
Form of the gates is old, or the shape of the gates is ancient, like they're antique looking. It's an old-fashioned look. Beautiful. We have plural genitive, don't we, of the gates. And why this ending on antiquus, antiqua, antiquum? Why did they put an A on the end? What is old? What is ancient? Not technically. The form. I know. Yes, it is the gate, but it's the form of the gates is ancient. Okay, we're going to do one more because I feel like Everybody is getting weary also. It's only 1:15, but I think we started early. There's only so much you can do at one time. Okay. Puellis Mace, we'll go out with a bang. Do a nice long one. Rosas Dare Debetus. Boom.
It's Miss My.
Mayus is my. Mm-hmm.
Girls My Roses. The girls My Roses give. Is that dead?
Well, Debio,
Oh,
right? Debio debes debet debemus debetus.
My girls ought to give roses.
Okay, but there's a problem. Look at the ending. That can't possibly be a subject. It would have to be puelai maiai. What is that? It's an indirect object. To my girls. To my girls. Or for my girls.
You all give roses to my girls.
Except it's not you all give. You all ought to give roses to my girls. Here's the trick, guys, and I'm bad at this and I'm trying to learn to be better. Latin is awkward for us because we don't know what's happening until the end of the sentence. We don't know the verb. And for us, it just seems natural in my English speaking mind that I hear who's doing it, and then I hear what they do, and then I hear the other circumstances. That's the order. But if you can learn not only to look at puellis meus, and you guys were doing a great girl, my, rose, you were naming off what they meant. It's fabulous. But take it a step further, and when you see puellis meus, it's to my girls. Do you know what I mean? And when you see roses, you know, you make a mental note, but that's what's having something done to it, right? To my girls, roses you ought to give. And you get to the point where you can read it in that order, but not until we start thinking in terms of that ending means to me, to my girls or for my girls, right? Does that make sense? And then we're less likely to get sidetracked by thinking it might be our subject. And it makes it easier because sentences in Latin get a lot longer, you know, and I can't even imagine speaking it and waiting, you know, till the end of the sentence to find out what the verb is when somebody's talking to you.
I guess if voice people interrupted.
Yeah, because what they do. Okay, so work on chapter 2. You know, I'm gonna be ready to go over the whole thing, and I'm gonna have chapter 3 for next week. I will bring your test back to you next week, and we'll just move on, and we'll see how far we get, since this is really sort of cementing these ideas in, and it's also stepping it up because some of the sentences get a little more complicated. You know, they're using some things that Latin Alive book only used a few times, and they didn't use it again. You know, in this one, they're continuing to give you commands, you know, continuing to give you ought with an infinitive, and that will be good practice for us. And yeah, other than that, I will see you next week. So this is crazy. I know.